where we spend our time in the innovation arena is a lot about market development. How do you innovate? Where do you innovate? When do you innovate? And you can't always just have a great technology and know the answers to those. So let me show you a few ways we're doing that. First, as I said, we had to differentiate that there is such a thing as technological-led innovation and market-led innovation. That was a tough concept. Market-led, what do you mean? Well, maybe you have an existing technology and you're going to find a totally new market for it. Maybe you combine 5 technologies and find a new functionality. Maybe you're going to innovate something in a specific market like India and ask where else in the world can it go. So we started to introduce this idea that there are maybe new business models. Just because you make something doesn't mean you have to sell it the same way. So this idea for us of market-led commercial innovation has been a driving force of saying, yes, there's technology, but there's also a role for market-back innovation. And that's, I think, been I'd hope the defining imprint that our business marketers have led, and I think hopefully one of Jeff Immelt's legacies is that he's been the innovation CEO, he's been the ambidextrous CEO, he's known how to use both sides of his brain to think big and to work and make things happen. So let me show you a couple of examples of how we're bringing that to life. One of the first things you had to do, okay, marketing your market-led innovation, what are you accountable for, growth, how are you going to do that? So one of the things we did early on was we said we need a pipeline of new businesses, kind of internal startups, if you will. We call them imagination breakthroughs. These are ideas, I don't know if you use this framework here, but we used a very classic business school tech case study, business school framework. Box 1 being core, box 2 being adjacencies, box 3 being new space. And we said marketing really has to own box 2 and box 3. Technology in the business units are good about continuing to iterate in the core, but who's looking after what's next? That's marketing's job. And so to do that, we created an internal pipeline of ideas. We call them imagination breakthroughs. I'll give you 2 examples of what they are. I like to think of them as protected class of ideas. When times are tough, you really can't kill them. I mean, you have to kill them if they're bad ideas. But often what happens in business, as you know, is things get tough. This idea is good, but I have no revenue. I don't even have a customer. I'm not going to fund this anymore. And then 3 years later, you're like, where are our new sources of revenue? Oops, I killed that one. So we needed to create market-led innovation and protect the ideas. I love this example. This is a jet. You see the little Honda here? So this was one in our first class of imagination breakthroughs, led by a marketer who said a big trend in the marketplace, this was back 2004 probably, is personal air taxis. Air's taken off. There are many more regional planes. You want to go from New Haven Airport to Providence. Maybe I need a plane that only has 4 people. It's kind of like an air taxi. This trend is happening. What are we going to do? We make really big jet engines. We don't make little jet engines. So let's start to understand what are the dynamics of the market. Can we make small jet engines? Let's go after it. They go into it a couple years in. It turns out making small jet engines, even though we do that, is hard on your own. We need a partner. We looked around. We found there's a company called Honda, you may have heard of, out of Japan. They're envisioning a world where cars fly. They want to get into the aviation business, but they don't know a thing about jet engines. So out of that becomes this sort of beautiful marriage, this joint venture partnership, where together we're creating a new space. It hasn't come into the market yet, to give you a sense of incubation. Started 2004. It'll be 2014 before the first plane hits the market. It's about $2 million if you guys do well as you graduate. The point is, like, so many people hated this idea in the aviation business. They thought it was stupid. Who wants a small jet engine? The market still hasn't taken off. The downturn hurt things, but somebody had to protect it. And out of this came this mantra for us: do you want to be 100% of nothing, or maybe 50% or less of something viable? So we couldn't do this on our own. Maybe we didn't want to take all the risk. We didn't have all the capabilities. It took us to Honda. So that's what I think good marketers do. They identify a trend, an opportunity. They create the environment to go and grow in new spaces, and we put real resources behind it. Another example is...
Just on follow up on that. Given that the incubation is so long, and you obviously look at some trend, but how confident you were or are on what the demand is going to be? And assuming you were not that confident, what is the role of, what is the intuition, the CEO, how does it
great, and this is a good example of how the CEO and CMO work together. So, you know, Jeff expects the CMOs to have a good gut. They're not gonna know all the answers, but to know to ask the right questions, to have a good hypothesis, to understand that there may have been other things in the market to look for, and then he's carved out specific time to make sure he spends 4 hours a month looking at some of these ideas, asking questions, making sure budget doesn't get killed. So he very much modeled that this is important to me as a leader, it should be important to the head of aviation, and I want marketing to lead it. Because if I leave it to technology, they may not appreciate, they're big, they think big engines. They don't think we're ever gonna do small. So I think that, I don't know if that answers your question. Another quick example is actually a marketer who's running one of our businesses, one of our most exciting internal businesses. It's taking battery technology out of a locomotive and now taking it into new markets. So think about powering cell phone towers in India. Think about mining, going into mines in Africa. So taking a core technology and finding totally different market, it's a startup. It's a startup that he's leading. So that's the kind of, again, what innovation and marketing do together. The other thing that's been a big imprint for us is understanding the needs locally. You've heard a lot about reverse innovation. It's gotten kind of trendy. I actually don't like the phrase. I think it's really innovation the way it should be. VG Govindarajan out of Talk partnered with us. He actually has a book out this week. I'd recommend it. He has some good case studies. But basically this was a recognition that as a global innovation company, we just looked around the globe. We would go in and in healthcare in India, we thought we were really good. We had a $300 million business. We were #1 market share. We thought we were so good. We looked at the very high end of the market, the top tier academic hospitals. You step back and you go, there's a 1.5 billion people. They're hospitals who could never afford what we make. There's not just 300 million, 500 million, $1 billion of opportunity. There's $75 billion of market potential. Wow. How do we go after it? Well, a $50,000 baby warmer is not going to sell in a tier 3 hospital. But you know, a $10,000 one will. How do we invent that? So for us, it was a matter of putting marketing resources in India alongside technologists to go live in tier 3 hospitals in India to say, you know what, they don't have power all the time. Even if we could invent it at $10,000, they need a continual power source. To start to say what else needs to go with the offer. And so reverse innovation has been another way where marketing has played an important role to say what's happening in the market, let me observe, let's live with the customer, let's innovate. And then what I love about this example, $10,000 baby warmer in India, $50,000 in, you know, probably at the hospital here, with different features and functionality. It's not dumbed down, it's just more focused. The biggest market outside of India, where do you think it would be? Any guesses? Finland. Not exactly the most emerging of markets. So the fact is, once you start to see a segment, you start to say where else in the world. Again, that's what marketing does. So another example, we also created these cross-company platforms with cute names but very serious efforts. Health Imagination, Eco-Imagination, which is here. This was something, I love these as a proof point of what marketing, business marketing can do. So as I said to you, it's creating value, it's innovating. With Eco-Imagination, which started it, we looked out, our customers said, we need better technology, we can't go broke. Following regulation, we want to do the right thing, but this is expensive. Help us, GE. So we heard this in energy, in aviation, in water, and we stood back and we said, is there a platform we can create? Out the other end came Eco-Imagination. It was about focusing our technological investment around need. So batteries, as I mentioned, solar power, wind power, a lot of other things that maybe weren't on the radar because the traditional core business is like, solar's never gonna happen, it's too expensive, it's too far out. What are you gonna wait for the market to be there and then you're gonna say, how do we catch up? So how do you plant those seeds? We used it as a way to get closer to our customers, do co-development. We used it as a way to make commitments to the marketplace, to say we're going to hold ourselves accountable. So there was a social responsibility, a series of commitments. And then we also used it as a way to partner more. And I'll show you a couple of examples. But to me, this is what good business marketers do. They see a trend, they connect the dots, they create something that didn't exist, It's a $20 billion revenue stream now, from nothing in 2003. Real value for the company. Our customers can feel it. A lot about partnerships. And again, I think you might not think of marketers as being about partners, but if you're going to innovate, a company even as big as GE, we don't have all the answers. We're big, we're in a lot of industries. It's a very humbling experience to realize that maybe other people actually have good technology, and maybe you ought to partner with them. So we've been doing a lot in open innovation that's been marketing-led, using eco and healthy, saying, hello world, give us your best examples for smart grid technology, 5,000 business plans, 50 investments, 5 businesses that we're incubating to figure out how can they go to market. How can we test their idea with a pilot customer? How can we validate that their idea will scale? Again, who in the organization is going to do that without an understanding of the market? So it's sort of, in our mind, a natural place for marketing to be. The birth of new business models. This is, for all of you graduating, I don't care what business line you go into, what industry, I guarantee you this is the big question in every burning industry. I was at NBC. What's your business model? No one wanted to give up the DVD. That was really attractive, let me tell you. Great margins, a great business line, Netflix, it was like a nap, right? It's never gonna take off, who's gonna do that? The story in 5 years has been written. What are the new business models? How do you have confidence? This is where a lot of innovation, and who's gonna do it if not marketing? I have a picture here of electric vehicles. We've invested. In our company, we have a lot of technology, a lot of capabilities. We lease cars. We can help move a market, but you have to have a market to move. So we've taken time to say, let's help develop the electric vehicle space. How do you make money? What is it, just charging your car? Who's going to make money? Is it just selling batteries? Maybe your charging station turns into advertising for it. Maybe there are different kinds of models you learn from startups, like A Better Place out of Israel, whose whole model is buy power basically by the month. They guarantee power. Those kind of models are very important. Digital is incredibly important for us, and I think you're all graduating in a time when you can't hear enough about big data. Actually, we can all hear enough about it. Are you sick about it already? I am, but you better not get sick of it, because it's the future. If you're a marketer, you're going to have to be part data scientist. You're going to have to figure out all the data that comes out of all of the different things the customer engagement, the internet sites we build. One jet engine has a terabyte of data. Okay, IT can take all that data. Who's going to turn it into value? What do you do with it? How do you sell it? And this is a great example. I love this one. Our marketing team in aviation basically said, okay, a terabyte of data from a jet engine. What, and this is a metaphor, it doesn't really do this, but what if my jet engine posted on a Facebook wall? What if it tweeted? What would it say? Hey, I'm hot, I'm running it's a little dusty. Hey, service shop, can I stay out a little later? I don't need to come in like you thought. Or hey, vibration, I need to come in early. Can you capture that data, translate it, and put it on an iPhone at Boston International of the Continental Airline service shop? That's, how do you sell it? How do you value it? You're making the airline run better. It's a new business. It's a new business, and it's a new business model. Marketing, yeah, IT can figure out what to do with it, how to get the data, but what do you do with it? So I'm convinced that big data is the era of big marketing. You got to think big, and there's incredible value, but it's not easy to get to. And finally, again, my Scrabble here, I think one of the things that we're always struggling with in innovation is this notion of failure. Companies don't like to fail, people don't like to fail. And one of the things that we're trying to use marketing is a role model for failure. Take little bets, we have these protected class of ideas, they're not all going to succeed. That marketing can be a bit of the buffer to say, hey, let's try it, let's prototype together. I love this picture, you can sort of see it. I actually did a contest with my marketers to say, give me your ideas of the biggest failures you've had. I want to give an award to the biggest failure in GE. It was like crickets, nobody, nothing. No one wanted to nominate. So I had to go back to 1965 to find a really good example. This is out of our technology lab. and here's why I think you need good marketing, okay? This was in the era of the man on the moon, everybody was rushing to invent things, and someone in the tech lab said, wouldn't it be amazing if man could lift 1,500 pounds? I don't know why they picked 1,500 pounds, but we're gonna create this party man, exoskeletal lifter, and it's gonna help man lift 1,500 pounds. The only problem, it weighed 1,500 pounds. So clearly not a lot of market insight or understanding for what the market was, and it was a failure. But we're trying to connect the dots. We have so much technology. I could go on for days of technology that launched. Some of the most exciting stuff, but there was no one to buy it. It wasn't targeted to a segment that understood the need. The features were off for what the customer wanted. So even the best technology fails if you don't have that connection with kind of the market back innovation. And I'll come back to this. I thought I'd wrap with sort of showing you some of the things I think we've, Jeff has taught me and what I think we've learned about business and marketing. But with that, I'll stop and take questions and go wherever you want to. I'm happy to talk about my career, what I've gone through, what I've learned, and take it away. What kind of questions do you have? Thoughts? Challenge me. If you think what I've said is crazy, let me know. Ryan.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, GE is obviously a huge firm, and it is 130 years of history, and with Jeff coming in 2003, 2001, yourself in 2003, as far as bringing about that kind of change throughout the organization, so the challenges you had to overcome, maybe the processes that you undertook to really convince the technologists and the other employees as far as what marketing brings to the table.
Yeah, in some ways I feel like I'm still trying to convince some people. Habits are hard to break. We've been at this a decade. So it's hard, is what I would say. First of all, Jeff says we're going to have marketing. We're going to have a CMO in every business that's like revolutionary. We're going to have somebody. It's not optional. But people didn't know what they were hiring for. So part of it is an executive edict. We're going to do this. This is important. I got tapped. I didn't have a very traditional background coming into this job. I grew up in NBC. I don't know, I do a little bit now, but I don't know much about aircraft engines or making a locomotive. So I came in from more of a media promotional background. So people are like, well, of course she's marketing. She's there to do the ads. But you're saying she's about innovation. What does she possibly know? I didn't go to business school. And so, there were some incongruous pieces that were being put in place. I think getting the mandate from the CEO saying, you're going to play, then getting good qualified people, and we had to do that in two ways. One was promote people from within. We took a lot of people out of kind of what we call business development, more mergers and acquisitions. We took people in GE out of quality, which is Six Sigma, so this is a very focused process. They have never met a process they don't like. And they didn't know anything about marketing. So we had to train those people with the skills that you guys come out of school with. And then we had to go and equally hire people who were really great business marketers. So we had to go hire people from Schlumberger and Procter & Gamble and United Airlines and Pfizer and a whole host of industries at very top levels to come in and train the organization of what's possible. So we were training from within, we were hiring from without, and then we created a training program where we hire about 150 MBAs a year around the globe, and their job, would be the kind of folks you guys are, experienced with an MBA, their job was to bring some of this to life. Imagine, your job is you have to come in and you have to train a healthcare business leader on this is what marketing is. It's kind of intimidating. So we had to put some of those, and then some of the programs I mentioned here. We're going to have imagination breakthroughs. Marketing owns that. We're going to grow in new spaces. Marketing owns that. So I think it was edict, which is key, but if you just do an edict, people don't always believe it. Seeing is believing. So we had to have experts come in the company who could train and teach and show people. And then you needed proof points. These efforts like imagination breakthroughs or new market developments. I remember once, this was the simplest idea. We treated this guy like he was a Nobel Prize winner. He went in and he was in energy, and he resegmented the Middle East, North Africa region. And he found $200 million of opportunity that no one had thought possible. We're like, that's marketing. Yay! Nobel Nobel Prize winning marketer, because it was a way to say, oh, you know what, I didn't think about marketing, looking at where the market's going. So we tried to celebrate and be very symbolic about what it meant to a culture that, frankly, again, technologists that love what they do. They are there to invent things, and they hope the world wants it. We're there to say, here's what the world wants. Let's do a big mashup. So we've had to work our way through that, and it still is very hard. I would say one of our most exciting products, we launched a great fanfare. It's called an V-Scan. It's very like Star Trek-y, matrixy. It looks like an iPhone. It's an ultrasound in an iPhone, basically. So think about an iPhone with an ultrasound probe. A big ultrasound, maybe the lowest price you could get is $20,000. This one's $7,000. State of the art. You can take it to Africa. You can take it on a football field. We just launched it because we could. We've now taken 2 years with marketing teams to say, what's the right application? We probably over-engineered it. Is it for emergency medical technicians? Is it for sports physicians? Is it for doctors in Africa? And we didn't understand how do you seed it in the market. So that's, I think as you start to see those examples and you see technologists who have a business plan that they miss, and they go, So that's what we're trying to do.
Can you talk about, coming from that marketing standpoint, how are you finding gaps, where you think that products are actually needed, and how are you communicating that to technologists?
Yeah, well, part of it is doing it together. I think one of the things I learned, back to Ryan's question also, is the first inclination is get out of the way, we know everything. Hey, get out of the way, we know marketing, you don't. It's pretty intimidating, because you start off making someone feel stupid, especially if a lot of business school people at GE, and this, I'm not saying this to make you feel bad, but up until that point, Jeff Emmett went to business school, but we didn't hire a lot of business school grads at GE. It was kind of not done. So suddenly one day we wake up and we want 150 business school grads a year, because these guys are really smart. It's intimidating. And so you have to, I think, pull teams together. So I think some of the best things we've done are discovery sessions where you take technologists and marketers into the market and you observe and learn together. So that hospital example I mentioned, increasingly it's doing it with customers. When we launched Eco-Imagination, we did a series of discovery sessions where we bring technology, marketing, and a customer. We'd peer out 10 years. We'd say, where do you see the world going? Let's have a view together. If we gave you $1 million, what would you invest in, coal or wind? And so that, and a good example right now is we've set up customer innovation centers like in Chengdu, China, where we are bringing rural doctors in from China and working together, but it's marketing and technology and the customer. So you have to do it together, I guess is my, and then the only other thing is just translate the insights. Marketers often get accused of being too theoretical. We have good frameworks, it's like we could all go work for McKinsey quite easily. How do you translate it? That's where we get dinged a lot. I get a lot from my boss, you're being too wonky. You're being too theoretical. And so I think that's where if we fail, it's because we have a great vision. We know, but it's like, okay, how do I get it. Now how do I do it? And I think that's where marketers have fallen down in our company.
I had a question. So you talked about open innovation a little bit. Can you talk about, Center and GE's involvement with that and the successes and the failures you've experienced over there? And also, are you using, crowdsourcing, I can see how you're using that for innovation.
Yeah.
Is that something you use for understanding the demand? I mean, is there a platform you can create around that?
Yeah, I think we can. It's really been in the past probably 2 years that we've leaned into open innovation. We haven't done too much within Accenture. We've done a few small projects with them, but most of what we've done ourselves with like venture capital partners and academics. And I think we're learning quite a bit about it. It mostly has been give us an idea, give us a business plan. But I'll give you a good example that we've done internally where we sort of took that and we said we're going to enter a new space. This is the food and beverage space and energy. What do you need? So we got 5 food and beverage customers, had a kind of open innovation jam with our employees, and our innovation and, you know, marketing and technologists, and together we innovated. And so part of that was vetting the market. Part of that was also coming up with potential new offerings, new sales offerings. That's probably as close as we've gone. I like where you're going. I think that would be a next phase for us.
I was wondering a little bit about or whether there is a tension between sort of business plan innovation and sort of more traditional technical innovation.
Yeah.
And whether you think, well, you know, like the picture on the screen right now, I mean, that's a big failure, but that's a really ambitious failure.
Yeah.
And whether you think the sort of, you know, put a man on the moon spirit is something that's going to stay in 1965, or whether there's sort of, you know, whether that is still something moving forward.
Yeah, let me start with your last question. I actually feel quite passionately about that. I look at energy. We don't have in this country, we don't have a man on the moon strategy right now. And innovation has suffered in the energy space. That's why we did our open challenge, because frankly we were frustrated in some respects that there wasn't more momentum. Downturn, I mean, a lot of it was understandable. Downturn, there were just some political uncertainties. A lot of what's happening in energy right now is happening in China. It's happening in Germany. So I think for us, increasingly, you see us doing that. We have a big open challenge in shale gas in Chengdu, China, in Poland. So I do think the man on the moon motivates people, motivates countries. I was just in Turkey. I travel a ton, a lot of market development work, as you can tell. And I was in Turkey, and I was just so excited to hear the Turkish government. I don't know if you follow Turkey or any of you have been there. The median age of the country is 28. It's a very young country. Very populous, very interesting demographics. But they said, you know what? The government said, we're going to give every student, primary and secondary school, a tablet. Because we want access to education. And with that has started an incredible race, man on the moon, what does it need to be the most technically educated culture? All the entrepreneurism that's starting, the manufacturing fight in the country. So I do think for innovation, those big, bold statements, and sometimes we feel that's our job as our company. Electric vehicles, there's no market. Okay, we're gonna buy 25,000 vehicles, and we're gonna lease them. To who, I don't know, but we're gonna do it. So sometimes you have to create those bold statements. And then on the business model innovation, it is so hard. I think, again, I think it's one of your biggest challenges, and it's where big data meets the world. How do you make money with this? Yes, we had Dick Costolo, CEO of Twitter, at a meeting with us a couple weeks ago. And, you know, I don't know if you know the Twitter stats. It took them 3 years to get to 1 billion tweets. Now they do it in 3 days. So he's talking about the data, and everybody's like, God, the data, wow, what and he said, you know, yeah, we're sitting on a gold mine, but it's not easy. And you don't, you have to learn what's a trend, what's an anomaly. You have to have data scientists in new ways. So I think we're all learning this together. And then at the same time, there's pressure of how you make money. This example I showed of the jet engine that tweets, we're making a little bit of money, but I can tell you there's a lot of energy in the company to want to kill this, because we don't know how we're going to make money. We haven't yet figured out what the business model is. And I think hanging out with entrepreneurs, and that is going to help us, but I think the business models are tough. Okay, you got data, what's it doing for me? Why should I pay you more for it? So I think that really is, and it's hard to prototype a business model. It's easy to prototype a website. It's kind of easy to prototype a product. It's really hard to prototype a business model, and that's some of what our team's trying to work through. How do you take features? How do you take an offering? You know, it's where tools like conjoint analysis, some of those play in, but it's hard.
Can you talk a little more about your background, specifically what skills in media have translated to what you're doing now, and what new skills you had to learn as a CMO?
Yeah. So I grew up in media. I started out my career thinking I was going to go to medical school, and then thinking I wanted to be a science journalist, and here I am. So I didn't exactly even imagine what business could hold for me. I thought I was going to be a journalist. So for me, I went on my journey, and I got into the promotion side of things. And I think for me, the skills I developed were a lot around change and internal startups. And my best job I ever had was probably the worst job no one wanted it, which is why I got it. I had left, I was at NBC a couple times, had gone to CBS, and this is in the history books. NBC had almost gone out of business in the news division, because the news division basically faked a news story, put rockets under a car, and brought down the news division. So no one wanted to work there, trust me. And so to me, it was just like, wow, I want to be part of the rebirth of something. I actually think I didn't take any more money. I took a slightly better title. I left CBS, which was the #1 woo-woo network, right? And went into this promotion role at NBC that was very uncertain. And I was part of a team that was able to rebuild, to see opportunity. I was part of a team that launched MSNBC. So for me, it was a chance to hone my skills, see something out of nothing. And it was at that opportunity that I caught the attention of Jack Welch at GE, and he said, hey, would you come to GE? I need more of that kind of thinking. So I think that kind of gravitate to change, be able to see trends, deal with ambiguity. I don't have the answer, but maybe there's something I'm okay with not having the answer. They're probably seemingly a bit nebulous skills, but I think they've served me very well. Sometimes I work in a change junkie. I like change. And then what I needed to learn, I don't have the toolkit you have. I didn't go to business school. I often wish I had, not so much for the how to do a profit pool analysis or what's the value chain. I've learned that. It's the network you guys have. That confidence and I've had to build my own network. And I'm a very shy person. It may not seem like it right now, but I've had to build a network. I think at GE they would say that's one of the strengths I bring. I built a very strong external network. And I just had to learn business. GE in some ways been my business school, my diplomatic school, my finishing school. So I'd say mostly it's the business essentials and the kind of business realities that I've had to learn on the job. And the only other thing I'd say is managing people is hard. I think you never get it right, and I think it's not managing people, it's managing visions, it's creating diverse teams, and I think I have learned a lot and still need to learn a lot there, but that's not something that I came naturally to. I think I thought I had to do it all myself, get to sit in a little room and come up with a brilliant plan, and then go, here it is, here Julia, look, I've done. And I had to realize you need people with different skills to round it out. They need to find the idea, feel like it's part of their own. So I'd say that's something that I've had to learn is just the power of team dynamics and working in really valuable teams and kind of being part of an effort that's you can help paint a vision, but you need a whole team to get you there.
Could you talk a little bit about the performance metrics that marketing is measured by in your firm, given how it's tied back to innovation?
Yeah. Well, growth. Did you sell something or not? And clearly, if you're in a box 2 or box 3 world, especially box 3, where you don't even know if you have a customer, right? So you can't be held accountable for revenue before you have a customer. So there are different metrics. Do you have a customer? Do you have a prototype? So every kind of box, if you will, has a different set of metrics. But at the very high level, is there revenue? Is it profitable? Can you make it more profitable? We look a lot at the mix of the revenue. We have different targets for different business lines, percent of revenue from new sources. That's clearly a big part of marketing. And so those tend to be some of the metrics that we look at. And then back to the, we were talking about this earlier, back to functionally, I like to think I play a role making sure that every marketer in GE has these skills. So I hold our marketers accountable. We actually have a whole scorecarding process and a way to link their capabilities to outcomes. And so tomorrow I'm going to spend 2 hours with Jeff Melton, the head of HR, and I'll show him a scorecard on all of our chief marketing officers in the business, all their teams, where they rate, who does what well, how they're linking it to results. Because of that, what training we need to do, what kind of people we need to hire, where gaps are. So I would say there are also functional metrics and skills.
Sorry, if I could follow up on that. So how do you talk about protecting it though? And so how do you balance that protection and the timeline for invention against those growth and revenue metrics?
It's so hard. I mean, some of it is just a belief in a good idea. I have a great story. So we have this process with Jeff, the Imagination Breakthroughs. He reviews them every month for 4 hours. And not all of them, and we do deep into it. There are about 30 ideas in any given year, many of them multiple years. And I remember once a team came in and he's like, you like this idea? They're like, yeah. And he's like, well, if you like this idea, you'd be funding it with 25 people and $15 million. Right now, it's 3 people half-time, and you don't have any funding. You don't like this idea. You're not passionate. So sometimes a metric is just, have you resourced it? Are you really committed? Do you like this versus, so oftentimes there's a gut check. How committed is the leader? You can't put a monetary or a numerical value on that. So I'd say a lot of that is sensing. And then you do have stages, pilots, prototypes, customers. But there is a lot of tension. Should you kill it? Should you not? Oftentimes people fund too many ideas. I found it's never that you have a lack of ideas. I think we have good ideas. It's generally you don't have a commitment, you don't have confidence, and you don't put the right kind of funding to see it through. And also you don't kill it. At the same time, are you killing it, or are you just limping along because you want to be the idiot that killed that idea 5 years ago? So those are some of the things. I know they sound a bit nebulous, but you have to kind of work through that.
Can you talk a bit about how you split your time among the many different things?
Yeah.
4 hours is a huge commitment. What does it go to?
This is my answer. I am the party man of time management. I am constantly seeking better ways to manage my time. I think it is probably one of the most essential things of leadership, and I am never doing it good enough, and maybe I never will. So how do I pick my time? There's a key set of business priorities for the company. Again, value and innovation is what marketing does. I need to make sure we have the right programs in place. A customer always comes first. So, luckily I was able to get the customer in first before I came up here. Developing talent's important. That's why I'm here. I want you to hear my story, but mostly I want you to know, GE is a great place and I need people like you. We need people like you. So talent development, whether it's functionally or externally, building skills, and then owning a couple of big initiatives and having outcomes. So eco-imagination, health imagination, these big cross-company platforms are areas, and getting into the market. So that's a lot when you think about it. And right now I'm feeling a little out of balance, to be honest. I've been too externally focused. I've been doing back to my network. I've been really working the external piece, traveling like crazy, and I probably haven't done as much on some of the internal programs. The business model development out of software, that needs some attention, so I'm going to have to dig in. So I try to set it, what's the strategy of the company? Jeff always asks us to have goals and objectives. We set it up annually and then we pulse it quarterly. The team I work with does the same thing, so that helps determine, so you have to sit down pretty much, I sit down every weekend. So I usually take a Saturday or a Sunday morning, and this is something I learned from Jeff. His mantra is always, if you don't control your time, you're not a leader. So I'm telling you, I'm not giving myself a very high mark. But I do sit down on a Saturday or a Sunday and I go through my calendar. Have I made the right bets? Can I take something off? Does something do I really need to do that meeting? Should someone else do it? Can I delegate it? And sometimes I try to save time just for discovery and exploration. I'm really big on that. And I have to say I see many leaders who think that's frivolous. I think it's essential. So I fight. I will take my personal time for discovery as opposed to work time. And what do I mean by discovery? I'll like to go to TED, or when I go to Turkey, I want to go, deep dive in the design industry in Turkey. And GE doesn't really need me to do that, but I'm passionate about it and I can find a work link. I go and find crazy books. I do new sources on the web. I think that's important for my brain, and I think it's important, especially for marketers, to carve out time for discovery. So I gave you a long-winded answer, but it's hard. So I'd say, do you know your strategy? Use that as a filter. Have a disciplined approach to constantly say, how am I doing? Take things off, put things back on when you realign. Know what you're holding yourself accountable for, and leave time for discovery. And honestly, we're all in business. It is the #1 complaint. I ask anyone I meet, right? I mean, how do you spend your time? How do you keep up with email? What are you doing on social media? And I've invested a lot of my time in the past 2 years digging deep in social media. The time has to come from somewhere. I try to work out, so you just constantly have to reevaluate and say, are these activities leading to the outcome I want to have?
Can you say a little bit more about how you manage your personal brand
something I think about a lot. It's evolved. I think when I did the job at NBC. It was a great assignment. Here I was a marketing person digging deep into technology, and I thought, I don't know anything about technology. I can't code, but I'm going to go into this as a marketer, and I'm going to say what are the behaviors, what are the implications. So it was a great immersion in digital technology. So we'll start with that. I had a Facebook account. I signed up for Twitter, but I think I kind of use them like gaming devices. You know, how many friends can I rack up? So I didn't really take it that seriously. I got back to this job, and I said, well, wait a minute. Millions of people are doing this, and I'm just kind of auditing. What's happening? And so I actually hired a mentor, someone half my age, to come in and help me just not feel so, or it was okay that I felt stupid. You know, she would do it privately, and I didn't have to embarrass myself with people at work. And so she sort of held my hand and taught me how to think about social media, and I learned that it was important. And it was important as a mode of expression. It was important as a way to gather information. And I think originally I thought there are two, there's the me, and then there's a digital me and a personal me. There's a business me and a personal me. I don't think that anymore. I think we're all living out loud. And so anything I tweet, it's still gonna come on GE, right? I could say this opinion is not the company's, kill the whatever, or I hate chocolate. If it starts a big scandal and chocolate is a big customer of GE's, it's going to reflect on GE. So you have to remember, I think we're living out loud. I think to build your brand in any media, I think you have to connect with things that you care about. So for me, I've done Facebook and Twitter around trends in design, innovation, marketing, travel. I travel a ton, so I'm always, sharing how do you pack and what are you doing. So that's an interest. And then I love just kind of crazy viral things that, again, aren't going to embarrass the company or me. So that's how I've chosen to filter it. And I think it's important that people like leaders be out there. I'm in marketing and sales. I have those two functions. I got to connect with customers. One of my best customer relationships is with the head of is the head of a company in India, and Mahindra. And it's one of the top business leaders in Mahindra. And I saw him in India, and I said, I'm following you on Twitter. He said, I'm going to follow you back. We become big Twitter buddies. I've been able to connect with multiple people across Mahindra. I can't tell you the business connection that we've made because he made himself accessible. I made myself, and I just see that happening more. I believe business is social. And I think in companies like mine, people think it's frivolous. They think it's something that you do in your personal life. They think it's something your kids do. It's not. It's the way people connect. So I would say it's about brand, but it's as much about business. So that's the way I've chosen to look at it.
So on a company-wide scale, how do you use these new technology platforms to connect with your B2B customers?
Yeah. Well, we've invested a lot in content. We think content, we don't have distribution, and we're not Facebook, so you have to work with people like Facebook. Or LinkedIn, but we've invested a lot in content. And content can be everything from hiring a filmmaker to explain how hydraulic braking works in a locomotive. It's beautiful. Go on the GE show on GE.com. I swear it's one of the best pieces of film you'll ever see. It's beautiful. It explains technology in a totally new way. For us, content is visualization of data. We're making sense of crazy data. How do you access all the health records we have access to? Not personally, we're not saying here's yours, but here are trends in healthcare and in personal health records. The data that comes out of a gas turbine, what can you do with it? Simulations. So you can say to an airline, if you fly at this speed and you have this thrust and how much greenhouse gas will you emit? What's your NOx, your SOx? So those become content, the ability to interact with data and impact your productivity. White papers become content. So I think for us it's been a lot of investing in relevant content is one. And two, a bit of a relief to say, I don't have to reach 1 million people. Maybe I just want 50 of the best hospital administrators. And I want to engage them in a discussion. And so finding the right 50 is more important than finding 5 million. And so that kind of micro relevancy targeting that digital and social allows you to do. And then sometimes we just have fun. We're building a brand. Facebook, it's like ask a stump a scientist. You know, why can't a plane fly through a volcano? Here's a mathematical problem. Gee, scientists, what would you do? So some of it sometimes is just fun because you want people to be accessible and find a way. So I'd say it's business, but you also kind of have to have fun with it as well.
Okay, as a follow-up to that, how do you train your employees to be able to, adjust to that kind of interaction?
Yeah. You get legal to leave the room. No, I mean, some of the biggest debates we have, this is one we're having with legal right now. Okay, in one of our business units, LinkedIn is very good from a sales perspective. There's a lot of research. You're able to connect to customers in ways that isn't spamming. I think they're really working on that. And one of our businesses, the legal department says, no, you have to use your personal email, not your business email. I'm like, what? So it's things like that sometimes that get in the way. So we spend a lot of time educating people. What are the rules in terms of, etiquette and you are, even though you say you're not speaking on behalf of the company, you are. We have kind of an ambassador squad of mentors and people inside who go and sit down with business leaders and teach them. So there's some written things, there's some online things, and then for some of the more senior executives, we'll have desk side mentoring.
I'm curious if you were given both marketing and sales when you first joined GE.
No.
And I guess how managing both make your job harder or easier?
I think for a company like ours, it's critical. Back to what I said earlier, if we're too theoretical and we can't translate it into sales, if there isn't a sales to take and translate it and get it into the marketplace, we don't have a lot of credibility. And at the corporate level, I mean, I oversee the company's commercial efforts, but I'm not doing incentive plans for the sales team in energy or aviation. They have sales leaders. What I can do at the company level is set goals and objectives, drive initiatives. So for us, digital, the sort of your engine that tweets, that's a priority. How do you give every salesperson an iPad and Salesforce.com and the tools they need? I can kind of drive a set of standards, a set of direction. We're all going to do global. We're all going to have this training program of MBAs, and you're going to hire 5 people a year. And so those are the kind of things. We're going to have eco-imagination, and here's how you're accountable. This is the sales target that one business on its own is never going to do. So that's how I look at my job, is to create the initiatives, the momentum, and then every team, marketing and sales, has to go very deep in delivering it. It would be impossible for me to do, very tactical, hands-on work with 45,000 people. So you have to think much more about it.
There's an interesting, I don't know if GE has that, but certainly at IBM, there's a lot more conflict between the sales teams and the marketing teams. And, who's adding value and how do you measure that? And how, it's kind of almost counterproductive because some of the marketing people I was working with, half the time they were just spending to be able to justify to the CEO what the value was compared to the value that sales was doing.
Yeah, it is. I think we've worked really hard to bring sales and marketing together. It's not perfect, but it is that definition. I think marketing and product has been harder. Sales and marketing have a common objective. Once you get over who owns what, so the conversation usually starts like this. Sales is like, but I own the customer. What are you going to go talk to my customer for, Mr. and Ms. Marketing? I own the customer. You're like, yeah, you own the customer. But I can help you look at them from different perspectives. I can tell you things that they're not telling you. You own them, yes. But I can give you insights that help you serve them better. So you have to sit and you have to prove it. So I think that took us a couple years to get over. But in a B2B company, I think there's probably maybe, I don't know, I know Phil Kotler did a study a couple of years ago and looked at it, and I think we did okay. We did much less well on the product side.
What are 2 to 3 qualities that you look for in someone when you're hiring for a marketing position?
I look for people who have curiosity. I tend to look for more soft things. I mean, obviously, I assume you come in with a good resume and you've built skills. So I'm assuming that. Although I'll come back to that in a second. But I look for people who have put themselves in interesting situations, are okay with ambiguity. They don't have to have everything answered. People who don't mind change, and there are ways to test for that. I mentioned it earlier to Alexander, I believe firmly that diverse teams are the best teams. So I try to spend a lot, if I have everybody the same, we're not gonna be very innovative. The team is hard, it's really hard. And managing or being a leader of people who maybe don't like each other, they respect each other, but their styles are different, that's hard. But you want that kind of tension. So I think you need people who have a passion for the marketing, clearly. They want to create something new. They understand the value and innovation in our company. They get that they want to do that. They want to be in our case, they want to be an internal entrepreneur. They want to own something that they don't necessarily have all the answers to. So I guess it's those kind of things that, I mean, clearly we have rigorous screening and we test people. And I was going to say something else and I forgot, so I'll come back to it. I was going to make another point, but I lost it, so.
Interestingly, we asked a similar question to John Hayes last week, and he said two things, and the first was curiosity.
Yeah, I think increasingly if you've had some kind of digital expertise, it gives you a leg up. I think the more you've had big data or data and analytics, or you're not intimidated by it, I think that kind of skill is going to give you a leg up. I think global experience, either whether you've had it or if you want it. So even if you haven't had it, to come in and say, if you come in and say, like, yeah, I want to work at GE, but I'm only going to work in New York City, chances are probably not going to hire you. We don't have that many jobs in New York City. But if you want to work in Turkey, you want to work in China, you want to work in Sao Paulo, even if it's just to do an assignment for 6 months, that's the kind that it's a global marketplace. And so I think we need people who have that kind of passion to be part of global business. So that may weed certain people out. Those would be some of the things as you asked that. What was the second thing John said?
Persistence? Yeah.
Persistence is a good one. Yeah. The other thing I would say is you guys read the article and we talked about our 4 I's. I use that as a bit of an assessment on people. And high on my chart is the instigator gene. Now you can't have everybody who's an instigator because you'll just piss everybody off. But there's always a role. I always like to say instigators needed but not wanted. And it's the hardest job. Can they fend for themselves? Are they persistent? Can they get people to understand why change is needed? We talked about the other 3, an implementer. So sometimes you need people who just get stuff done. One of our best marketers is such an operational powerhouse. He may not be the most strategic, but boy, he gets stuff done. There's a real value in that. A marketer often has to pull teams together. So are you good at pulling disparate skills and thinking together? And then are you an innovator? I think that you need somebody so I think it depends on what the assignment is and what the team is. But for us, it's people who know themselves. I think that's also good. I love it when people come in and go, you know what, I'm really a strategist. I don't like when people come in and try to be everything because I don't think you can be, but I think you can be open to developing other parts of yourself.
Could you talk a little more about how you test for the 4 I's, and is it more assessed through an interview or do you have assessments? What kind of things?
Yeah, a lot of it's through an interview. We'll give people simulations. So for example, with our commercial program, our MBA grad program, we have an internship program, and we'll give people assignments, and we're kind of watching and testing and seeing how they work in group dynamics, how do they handle the ambiguity. That's all. You can't do that with everybody. And obviously you talk to references. How did they handle this? But simulation, I think, is the best. What would you do if? How would you handle this?
Were you sad for NBC to no longer be part of the GE?
Given that I've spent half of my career there was a sad part about it. So I mentioned earlier, it was a great assignment. My last one, I worked there 3 times. My last one was a great assignment. I learned so much. It was really hard for all the things we're talking about. You didn't know new business models. People were nervous that anything new was going to cannibalize what they had. People weren't very nice at that stage because they were fearful. It was change. It was a very hard job. So I was sad to leave the challenge. Honestly, I personally wasn't sad to leave anxiety that people were going through, but I learned a lot through it. And then when having lived through that, you had to understand that the future for GE owning NBC is uncertain. What is digital doing to the future of film and television? How is it going to play out? And if you're GE and you can invest $1 in the future of healthcare or energy or the future of media, where do you have more skills? Where do you have more confidence? Where can you help make the future? And so having lived through that, it made me understand that the future for media is hard and we need to partner with people, and that kind of, obviously it led to the company to looking at Comcast. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun business. The people are great. I'll be honest, the creative jobs that I've had have all been on the GE side. It's a really, because you have these tough challenges. Anything's possible. Be creative. Sometimes, you know, just because you say to be creative, these opportunities give you a chance. So in my experience, I found creativity sometimes where you least expect it. I mean, I'll give you an example. We've been working on a project in Saudi Arabia with Health Imagination, and I love it because it's so meaningful. For one, it's mission-based. We're helping the Ministry of Health there deliver better health to more people. There's education, there's manufacturing, and one of the things we've done is we've helped them redesign breast cancer screening. Women there don't get screened for breast cancer. Cancer's a curse. Breast cancer is just a really bad curse. And so we created a digital avatar program with the government so that women could ask questions about screening kind of behind the anonymity of a digital avatar. That's creativity, right? I didn't need to have Saturday Night Live to create a digital avatar that has impact. So I think if you're open, these kind of businesses often have a need that meets a mission. Let me do this first.
So you mentioned creativity, and I think something we've learned in a lot of our classes is that it's hard to really make time and space for creativity in your workforce.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you encourage that with the team.
Yeah, well, I think making sure your teams have enough creative people. But I believe everybody's creative. So you also have to create the environment. So you need people who feel comfortable expressing their creativity. And for the people who are less comfortable, you need an environment that encourages them to take risks, that lets them find creativity in their own way. You know, brainstorming works sometimes, but not all the time. You can't just mandate, okay, now let's be creative. Sometimes creativity means people have to go off on their own, think through it, come back in a group. So you have to create space. And I think you have to allow people to fail. You have to say, that's okay. What did you learn from that failure? Not, how could you? What did you learn? How's it going to prevent us? So I think that kind of environment and curiosity. Are you encouraging people? I remember one of the best things we did was we took teams and we would marry them with unlikely sources of inspiration. So a team of nuclear and water, looking at how do they do water reuse in nuclear plants. Again, sounds pretty boring, right? We teamed them with NASCAR pit stop folks. And they were suddenly incredibly inspired by the creativity of how NASCAR solved their problem, and it helped them think through a totally different way of looking at water reuse in a nuclear plant. Bringing airline pilots into the operating room with our healthcare people who are watching anesthesiologists. They can't even tell you what they do. So how do you get pilots in their head going, okay, life and death, technical, here's maybe what the anesthesiologist is thinking, here's the logic they have to go through. So I think that allows for some creativity too. Those kind of examples.
I was wondering, are you still on the board at Nike?
I am. I've been on the board for a year.
Oh.
So it's relatively new for me. It's a marketer's dream, so I have to say, clearly they didn't hire me for my marketing skills. What I'm learning from them is they have a very different style. Mark Parker, who's CEO, is awesome. He designed Air Jordan, right? So I mean, he's not like a lot of the leaders I see at GE. His style is much more introverted, natural team builder. So it's great for me to see that leadership, and they're very global. So to sit and see how they're taking on cricket in India, how they develop a market, how they try and try again, even if they don't get it right the first time, and they lay in wait and they observe. I'm able to take that back. No, I jumped. I didn't let you answer the question. Sorry.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that was probably my question. I was just curious. Also, is where does the CMO's role differ from Nike, for example, yours?
Yeah. Well, Trevor Edwards, who's the CMO of Nike, he has product lines, so shoes, women, tennis, you know, the product lines are part of his responsibility. Retail separate, and then obviously building the brand, creating the right brand experience. Those two things fall in his domain. In my world, it tends to be much more developing markets, value, the innovation piece. He doesn't spend as much on innovation. There's actually another team there that does that. So it's slightly different, but we both would share kind of a brand development piece, I think. So let me wrap up with this, and then just hopefully you've gotten from what I've said, if I've been quasi-successful, CEO and CMO, strategy and mission are clear. You know what success looks like, at least directionally. You know, we want to develop a market for shale gas in China. You may not know how to get there. You know how it'll be measured. It may not be perfect, but you at least say we're going to start to measure things. You have the resources to get there. Are you serious? You're going to fund it. Operating rhythms, the CEO, the CMO, you have to pulse people's progress. The organization knows the mission. GE, we make the world work better. We're held accountable. We have deliverables. Every business leader has a metric that says I'm going to have revenue from new sources. I'm going to grow in box 2 and box 3. Symbolic acts matter. For the CEO to say marketing matters. I'm going to hire a big CMO in every business at the corporate level. You're going to fund it. I'm going to hire 200 MBAs a year. We're going to spend money. That matters. And then action and clear communications. I found you have to say it over and over and over again. And then finally, I guess my last thought for you as we wrap up is, just as you think about your career, a couple of key things that I think I've learned, probably painfully. One is you're the boss of you. And that's hard, because you think sometimes your boss is like managing everything. You're the boss of you. And I think you have, partly you build confidence over time in your career, but the clearer you can be with your organization about what you want to do, what you want to contribute, what your expectation is of the company of how I need to be developed. I need more global experience. I need to work more with entrepreneurs. These are the things I'm putting myself out there for. I expect the company to give me time and investment to do that. I needed to understand business planning. And so you can wait for people to give you opportunity, or you can be very clear in the organization. And I'd use that as a filter. Does your company want you to talk about the future that you want to create? Now, you're not going to get there tomorrow, and you're going to probably get some assignments that probably stink. Because there are times when the company says, I know you don't want to do this, but I need you to do this for your development, or hey, the company needs you. But in the end of the day, if you're having that kind of conversation, I learned that late. I think I thought early, you know, I gotta wait for the company to tell me what's next. I could have been more thoughtful in mapping it out. I'd say be open to new experiences. Often the jobs that sound the best aren't. The jobs that sound horrible are terrific. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't taken that NBC job that no one wanted. I left NBC to go to GE, and people thought I was crazy. You're leaving media? I mean, you're nuts. The best decision I made career-wise. And so you have to listen to that inner voice, back to knowing what you want to do. And then the only other thing I would say is, you know, sort of go for it. Just put yourself out there. The world is exciting. There's so many places in the world to go, but you have to be in it. You have to immerse yourself. You have to, if you're going to be, especially a marketer, you have to know about the markets where you're working, and you're the one that has to translate it and come back and sort of say, hey, I see this. Here's what's possible. Here's how you build a vision. So just some thoughts and things that I think have been critical for me. And lastly, I would say I have 2 daughters. They're older. Partly why I travel so much is because they're in college, but I was able to balance both. And I think partly it was doing what I love. I started my career early, my children and my career at the same time, and I just kind of went for it. And I think for me, like if I was enjoying what I was doing, it was an important message to my daughters to say I love what I do. And so they knew if I wasn't with them, I was doing something I liked. And obviously I needed a job, so that was always a good message to say. But you know, you're going to have a lot of choices, and the world is global. And there are a lot of ways you can have a career and have a family. You don't have to do it all at once, and I've seen lots of role models who've done that, men or women. And one of my best mentors is somebody who's 10 years younger than me. And she took 10 years off of her career. And she's back in a really powerful job now. And she is so together. And I've been so inspired. She didn't take a traditional path. She took time to know what she wanted. So I think you'd find that there are a lot of models out there. There's not one prescribed path. So
Thank you so
with
much.
that, that's